So we have seen a system with the help of resource allocation graph that if there is a deadlock or not. Now next we will see another example where there is a cycle but there is no deadlock. Okay, now let's see. In this system we are seeing that there is T1 and T3. These two are actually forming a cycle, right? Now we'll check this system with on the 4 conditions, right? Number 1, is there any mutual exclusion? And number 2, if there is a condition of hold and wait. Number 3, 1, 2 and 3, right? Number 3, no preemption. Right, and number 4 is circular wait. Now we see that mutual exclusion. Is there any mutual exclusion? We have two resources, so we can say that mutual exclusion is not there, right? If we have more than one resources, then there is no mutual exclusion. Mutual exclusion is when we have only one resource available, only one instance of a resource is available. But if we have multiple resources of multiple instances of any resource, then there is no mutual exclusion. So the first condition went wrong. It means that there is no deadlock. But let's evaluate the next. If they are holding and waiting, yes, they are holding and waiting. If there is no preemption, let's say we assume that there is no preemption, and there is circular wait, yes. But as there is no mutual exclusion, nobody means there is plenty of resources available, and then we can say then we will say that there is a cycle but no deadlock, right? Okay, there is a cycle but there doesn't exist any deadlock. Okay, so the basic facts about the deadlock are that if a graph contains no cycle, then it means that there is no deadlock. Simply, if a graph contains a cycle, then we'll see the resources. If only one instance per resource type, then there is a deadlock. If only one resource per instance, right? One instance per resource type, as I have already mentioned, only one instance per resource type, then there is a deadlock. If several instances per resource type, then possibility of deadlock, but we say that there is no deadlock, right? Possibility of deadlock, right? If more than one resources are available, as in previous picture we have seen that, then there is no deadlock actually. Okay, so methods for handling the deadlock. Now there are actually 4 methods of deadlock handling. Number 1 is deadlock handling, number 2 is deadlock avoidance, number 3 is deadlock detection and recovery. Now in many strategies books have separated these two, deadlock detection and deadlock recovery, but this is actually one method, right? And then number 4 is deadlock ignorance. Now next slide we will see the more give me some, I will insert a new slide here to actually show you. Okay. Now deadlock handling, we will see that these 4 types before going to deadlocks, right? So deadlock, I'm actually defining these all types here because we are going to explore only the first 2 handling techniques which are mentioned in previous slide, deadlock prevention and deadlock avoidance. Okay. So however, the remaining techniques, deadlock detection and recovery and also deadlock ignorance, will not be covered. Okay. So these are actually some other techniques which are not very much necessary, and the necessary techniques I will now. With the deadlock handling, we have 4 techniques. As I have already told you that we have 4 techniques to handle the deadlocks. So we will be seeing all of these 4 techniques of handling deadlock, handling, right? So there are 4 techniques of deadlock handling. Number 1 is deadlock prevention, right? Number 2 is deadlock avoidance. Number 3 is deadlock detection and recovery, right? Detection and recovery, right? And number 4 is deadlock ignorance. Okay, so there are 4 methods to handle with the deadlocks. Okay. Okay, so there are 4 methods. Okay, there are 4 methods of handling. Okay, number 1 is deadlock prevention. Now in this condition we prevent from one of 4 conditions to occur. Right, 1 of 4 conditions to occur. What are those conditions? Number 1 is mutual exclusion. Number 2 is hold and wait. Number 3 is no preemption, right? Number 4 is circular wait. So we will try to avoid any of these conditions, right? If we avoid this, then there is no deadlock. Even these exist, then there is no deadlock, right? There is very less possibility of deadlock. If we can avoid these, then we can say that if we can prevent, if we can prevent a system to fall in one of these 4 conditions, then we can guarantee that there is no deadlock. Right? Guarantee of no deadlock. While deadlock avoidance is different than that. In this, we focus on the existing number of resources. Right? For example, if we need 7 instances of memory and 3 instances of maybe IO, maybe 2 instances of CPU burst, then we can and the available resources are maybe only 6, 2 and 2, right? Now as we have not enough resources, now if this is memory and this is maybe IO, right, and this is maybe CPU burst, now this is required and this is available, right? Now as we have less number of resources available than required resources, then we will not proceed with this process, right? Because we don't have enough number of resources. So we can say that if we have enough number of resources, let's say this is 4 and this is maybe 8, right? If we have 8 instances of memory available and 4 instances of IO available and 2 instances of CPU burst available, if we have enough resources available, then we can say that we are in a safe state. Now this safe state can be identified with one of with one algorithm, with one of 2 algorithm actually. The first one is RAG algorithm, the resource allocation graph, which we have already seen, right? Resource allocation graph, right? While the other one is Banker's algorithm. Right? So the Banker's algorithm, we will see how to find the safe state using the Banker's algorithm in this section, right? Now the third method is detection and recovery. In this we allow a system, to fall in the deadlock. Then what we do, we detect. If it falls in the deadlock, then we have some detection algorithm, right? Detection can be with resource allocation graph also, right? Possibility with resource allocation graph, and then recovery. Now there are 2 techniques of recovery. Number 1, abort all processes at once, right? Abort all the running processes at once. Number 2 is abort processes one by one, right? The main theme, the main objective of this method is to eliminate or break, we can say break the circular weight, right? Break the circular weight. So the main theme of this algorithm is to break the circular weight, right? Now I'm sorry for this type of messy representation, but I hope that you can get it. Okay. Now because why circular representation, why circular weight is very important to this? Because all of these are not important actually, are actually important, but this one is very much critical. So the same thing we want to avoid in this deadlock prevention. We try to avoid one of these conditions, while here we only try to break the circle, right? Break the circular weight. So the one technique is to abort all the running processes, the other technique is to abort the processes one by one, so that where the circle is where the circular weight is broken, it's fine, then there is no deadlock, the deadlock can be removed. Okay. Another method is deadlock ignorance. Pretend that pretend that there is no deadlock, right? No deadlock. Why? Because the frequency of occurrence of deadlock is very low. According to book, it says that 1 or 2 years. 1 or 2 years a deadlock can occur in 1 or 2 years. So in such a low frequency, for such a low frequency, why we shall take some overhead to avoid the deadlock? So we just ignore it. We just ignore it. Ignoring is blessing, right? So we just ignore that there is no deadlock. And if it is occurring in 1 or 2 years, then how much loss it will make, right? How much loss? How much loss will be there? How much loss it will make? So it's fine. It's fine. And many of the operating systems like MS, Microsoft operating system, and Linux operating system, popular operating system, many others are using this technique. There might be some exception of real-time systems, but the up to the user level, this is very much popular, right? So this is one method, this is second method, this is the third method, and this is the fourth method, right? Now we will be seeing this and this in detail, while we will be ignoring these two, right? And I have already given you sufficient detail about these four, right? But we will be not going in depth of these two. Okay, this is just ignorance, so we will ignore this. Okay, we will also ignore this topic because there is nothing to tell you else other than this, right? And while in this we will just I just told you enough details that are fine for this course. Okay, now we will come to the first method, the deadlock prevention. And now in this method we will invalidate one of the 4 conditions to prevent the deadlock. Now not require shareable resources, we make all the resources shareable, right? Number 1, make all the resources shareable, right? Make all the resources shareable. Number 2 is hold and wait. In hold and wait, we can have 2 conditions. Number 1 is that allocate resources before it begins. Whatever the number of resources are required for a process to complete, we allocate those number of resources before it begins for the execution of process. For example, if this P1 requires maybe R1 and sorry, this is also a resource, and one instance of R2, right? There is one instance of R2. If this is the condition and P1 need this one instance and one instance of this, right? But if this is already assigned to, let's say, P2, then this will not start, because we have to wait until the all resources are available, all required resources are available. Okay, and then another is, while requesting for, another approach is in the hold and wait is, now this is the one condition, right? And if low resources utilization, then starving is also possible, right? If we have low resources, and then there might be possibility of starvation, right? And also if there is a priority, then definitely there can be the starvation. This is something else, right? But this is the one technique in hold and wait. Another technique is also there. Another technique is that while requesting a resources, the process must release the resources on hold. While requesting a new resource, the process should release all the resources on hold. Okay, for example, if this is, let's say, P1 and this is P2, right, and this is R1 and this is maybe R2, right? Okay, so this might have two instances, this might have one instance. If P1 is requesting this, and while P1 is holding this resource, and P2 is also requesting this resource, right? And right, so if P1 is okay, this is held by P1, right? Now if P1 is requesting a new resource, then P1 should release one of these resources, right? He should release all the resources on hold. Means at a time only one resource can be with P1, right? With PI, any process, right? Any process, there should be at a time only one resource allocated, not multiple resources should be there. So this is the second approach. Okay, however, so in hold and wait we have seen two approaches. Number one is allocate the resources before it begins. It means that when we are going to start a process, we first see that either we have available resources, we have enough available resources to start this process, or the second approach is to while a process is requesting for a resource, then it should release the resources on the hold, okay, on the wait. So the third condition is no preemption. Hold, the resources should be preempted, right? Whatever the resources on hold should be preempted. If the process that is holding some resources requests another resources that cannot be immediately allocated to it, then all the resources currently being held are released. It means that that process, if that process is with no preemption, then it will have to restart in the future. I will explain this. Now, for example, if there is a process, right, it is having maybe resource 1 and resource 2 are already allocated to this, and it is also requesting a new resource, right? Now this is 3, this is 2, and this is 1. These are R and this is P. Okay, now if this is the condition, and this might be occupied with some other process, right, P2 maybe, sorry, if this is acquired by some other process, right, assigned to some other process, then what will happen if this is the problem, when the required resources are not available, then what will happen, this should also release these two resources. It means that this process is with no preemption, and if it will release all the available resources and also this resource will not be allocated, then it means that this process will have to restart. Okay, preempted resources are added to the list of resources for which the process is waiting, right? And whatever the resources are here are added to another list, that these resources were actually acquired by P1 at some time, right? Maybe 1 and 2 are added to a list. Process will be restarted only when it can regain its old resources, means these, and the requested resource, means this. The process can restart, not resume. I'm again telling that process will restart because this is an atomic process, right? This is like your bank transaction. If you are going to make some transaction, and if the server is busy with something else, then all the allocated resources are actually snatched from the ATM and the server will be performing some other job. So this is the same, and when at the same time if you are trying to perform some transaction, it will not happen and you have to restart. It will never happen that your card is inserted and you will keep on trying and you will get some cash. No, you have to take the card out and insert the card again and insert the PIN code again, and then you can only withdraw the cash if the system is so you cannot if you are in a login session and you want and the server became up during your login and it was actually logged off during your session, and then again it became up, okay, so you cannot make the transaction. You have to insert the card again, and you have to put the PIN code also again to restart the session, to establish a new session. So similarly here we will the atomic process, the process with no preemption, will be restarted. It will not be resumed. Okay, and the fourth condition is the circular wait. We impose a total ordering of resource types and require that each process requests resources in the increasing order. Now, for example, if we have if we have a resource like maybe from here R1 and R2 and and R2 and R3 and R4, right? Now to eliminate the cycle, we impose that the resources are requested in increasing order. It means that from R3 nobody will go to R1, it will go to R4, right, and so on. So the sequence of resources is in increasing order. Okay, number one. Number two is okay, so this is like that. Okay, and for example, if we say that there is a function which need Ri and Rj resources, right? Rj resources. If a function needs Rj resources and Ri resources, then it must request like this. For example, function Ri and then function Rj, right, and then do something here and then release Rj and release Ri. Okay, and on the other hand, if we say that function requests Rj and function Ri do something. Release Ri and release Rj. Now this is not correct because the functions are not in increasing order. Now first we are accessing j and then we are accessing I resources. It means that if this is j, right, and this is I, now first we are accessing this and then we are accessing this. However, this is not permissible. We impose the system to access in the increasing order, not in the decreasing order. Okay, so this approach is right to implement, where we access I first and then j and do something, our task, and then release I first and j first and then I. Okay, so we'll do in this order, right, in increasing order. So remember the increasing order here. Okay, similarly the same example is shown here, right? We can see that if we say that first mutex and second mutex, maybe the resources, right, we say that this is first and this is second. So if we say that first and second and we do some work and second and first, and then it is fine. But this thing is not okay when we call upon the resource second and then we call upon the resource first, and here we close first and we close the second, then this is not allowed, right? In the circular wait, we we force the system to demand the resources in the increasing order, not in the decreasing order or in the random order. Okay, random order is also not allowed, decreasing order is also not allowed, only increasing order is allowed in the circular wait. So this is the deadlock prevention. Okay, now second is deadlock avoidance.